Good evening. Welcome to the board orientation seminar for 2022. My name is Dan Quigley. I am the Vice President of Associations for Kirkpatrick Management. What that means is I am in charge of the people who work with you, the people who do the financials, your community association managers. So my job is to, ultimately I work for you all. You pay my salary, you pay my phone bill, you pay all the things for me to work for your association and to help the people who work for your association. So I'm going to start out by giving you my cell number. My cell number is area code 317-847-0016. I'm going to tell you the best way to get things done is really to call your community association manager. But if something comes up, you don't get the answers you want, you feel like something's not right, give me a call. That's my job. That's my cell number. I probably would do better with text than calls, but let me give you that number one more time in case you missed it. My number again is 317-847-0016. So I'm going to go ahead and get started tonight. And we are, as I said a little bit earlier, we're going to do something different tonight. During the meeting, you guys are all muted, and so you can't yell back at me, which is nice. But they're also, the chat area is open for you. If you have a question during the seminar, and there's some questions about, hey, what about this, or what do we do with that? We have Leah Mesmore. Leah Mesmore is a regional manager for Kirkpatrick Management. She's also a PCAM, which is the highest level that community association managers can get. She is going to attempt to answer your questions during the presentation, so that you guys can ask questions. They can be answered while you're going through. And so if we're talking about service animals and you have questions about service animals, she's your person. You put it in the chat. And if she thinks we need to bring it up again, just to clarify it afterwards. At the end of the presentation is going to be about 45 minutes, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit longer, but not longer than 50. We will have some time at the end that you guys will unmute everybody, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions so that are specific to your neighborhood, or general questions, or hey Dan, you had this, but we've done this, and just different ideas like that. It's everybody on here is either a Kirkpatrick employee or they are a member of a board of directors. You guys are all doing the same thing. You're all volunteers. And this, hopefully in the next 45 minutes, will give you a little bit more clarity as to what your job is, how you can do it, and how we can help. So I'll go ahead and get started. The purpose of a community association. So we're really going to kind of start at the beginning. So the community association, there's people who choose to live in for numerous reasons. So now this year, actually 74.1 million Americans live in community associations or HOAs. There are actually 347,000 HOAs and COAs. So that's a big number. The idea was, they're designed to really try and help everybody live in a harmonious area. Manage the common areas, manage the property interests. And really just kind of make sure that we're maintaining property values. It says that the preserving of the nature and character of the community, providing services and amenities to residents, protecting property values, and meeting the established expectations of owners. So that's really kind of what a community association can do. Because there's a lot of different kinds. There's condominium associations, and there are there's condominium associations, and then there are HOAs and cooperatives, different things like that. But it's a lot of different living. Governing documents. I'm going to talk a little bit about the governing documents. The governing documents are going to be your articles of incorporation. They're going to be your covenants and restrictions. They're going to be your bylaws, and they really are the laws of your associations. They actually create a binding relationship between the owner and the association. And they are, the first thing you should do as a board member is get those out, read the declarations, read the bylaws. It's a snoozer, but it'll tell you a little bit, the declarations are going to tell you about the neighborhood and, what the amenities are and different things like that. The bylaws are going to tell you about the governance, dig a little deeper into what you do at a board meeting and how many people are on the board and but different things like that. So that would be a good a good thing. First thing to do is to do that. I am going to show you this. So this is kind of the hierarchy of authority of your, I don't know how that is happening. Hierarchy of authority on the governing documents. So basically at the top is the recorded map. And that's really, you know, when they establish the information to build your home, build your condominium association, that's really got a lot of the first stuff on there, what percentages things are going to be, and the sizes and things, declarations and covenants, articles of incorporation. So it's really kind of a pyramid up and down, you can see, and then rules and regulations, you know, are down at the bottom. Really, rules and regulations for an association are really there to clarify everything else. So they're there to clarify the declarations and the rules that are there. One of the things we do have to talk about, though, is in this hierarchy at the top of it, above even the top, the point is the municipality. It's a hard word to say. So the city government, the county government, the United States government. For instance, a couple different things. One of them is we do have a neighborhood that I've worked with in Carmel, where in Noblesville, where the documents for the association say it's illegal to park on the street, and you know, that's, but the city of Noblesville says it's okay to park in the street, and so it's really, we're not able to as an association or as Kirkpatrick Management, we're not able to really enforce that rule. You know, if it's a broken down vehicle, if there's, you know, something else about the vehicle that's in the street, we you know, that is something we can take care of. But as far as having somebody towed who's in a street, it's a city street. If it's a private street, we're towing all day long. That's us. But if it's a public street, and the city says it's okay to park there, we're not able to do that. Another example of where the government is higher up than the association rules and laws is service animals. For instance, you know, service animals are a big thing now in high rises, in shared communities, shared common space communities. I did have I work with a high rise in central Indiana that has you know, a rule on size of dogs, that these dogs cannot be, or you can't have dogs in the neighborhood. But this one is the size of a dog. But if it is a service animal, it is something that's, you know, and there's rules that go by a service animal. I'm going to read you something on service animals, just because it is a topic that comes up a lot. But the service animals are one of those things that is above the FHA regulates that, and they are above any of our association rules. A service animal, basically, as long as an owner obtains a letter from a legitimate and licensed health service provider, they can have an animal. They can have the animal. This does not exempt the owner animal from following all the community rules. So that's very important, because, you know, just because it's a service animal, it can't swim in your pool. So, I mean, it still has to follow the rules of the association. Generally speaking, the board can still insist the animal be kept in compliance with community regulations. However, unless the animal has proven to be a significant danger, they cannot insist that it be removed from the community. So it really, if you're in a condominium association, or, you know, you've got some common areas and you're worried about some different things, the service animal changes the game. And it's really something that, as a board member, you do have to keep your eye on and see that that's coming. Community fees. So this is very important. You know, we hear a lot about that as far as how fees are established. A lot of times the assessments are going to be established in the governing documents. Most of the time they are. They're going to be monthly, quarterly, annually, biannually. And the fees cover the common used area from everybody. They're going to be the landscape and maintenance. They're going to be snow removal, garbage collection, street lighting, amenities. So if you got a pool, a tennis court, golf course, exercise rooms, police patrol, insurance, trash. Some neighborhoods have sewers. So it's really, and neighborhood to neighborhood, it's a very difficult thing to compare. So this year, you know, a lot of us just came out of the annual meeting season, and where people were trying to figure out as a board member or coming onto the board, trying to figure out where your fees are at a good level for your fees. And all of us had that neighbor who said, you know, I got a buddy who lives three neighborhoods down, and he only pays, you know, $300 for his association dues, and why are we charging $700? it's very difficult. Sometimes it's just as easy as saying, hey, you know what, they got a pool down there and we don't. If it's a smaller neighborhood, a lot of times the fees are more expensive. But even when you get into condominium associations, it's tricky because I have a condominium association that's very similar in Fishers. It's very similar to one in Greenwood. Same builder, same plot, all these different things. But in Greenwood, they don't pay the association dues. Don't go towards the sewer. They don't go towards water. They don't go towards trash. But in Fishers, it does go towards the sewer. It does go towards trash. So it's it just kind of depends a lot of times. So trying to compare neighborhood to neighborhood, it's tricky. All you can really do is your due diligence, and really just your fiduciary duty is to try and stay, just spend some time on the budget. Make sure you're spending the right amount of time. Have a reserve study. Have that study so that you can be you're going to have the right savings set aside. So if there is a major project, you're going to redo a pool, you're going to redo the entrance. There's those kind of things. You got to make sure that you are saving correctly. But the fees are really going to be something that it's very difficult to compare neighborhood to neighborhood. But a lot of times it's really the most important. You got to make sure you get it right, and that's the tricky part. Community governance. I don't know what the drawings are. I don't know if you guys see that on the screen, so I apologize for that. It looks like a 3-year-old's been playing on my screen, so hopefully that's just my screen here. The role of the owners. So I'm going to go back because you can kind of see we're kind of going to try and use a puzzle analogy here. You're going to put it all together so you'll see the little pieces. But the owners, what are the roles of the owners in your association? They are obligated to adhere to the restrictions. That's the stuff they don't like. What they do like, and what owners have power on, is they do elect the board of directors, board members most of the time, unless you can't get a quorum, unless there's extenuating circumstances. But generally speaking, that's who chooses the leaders of the association, is the homeowners. Every homeowner gets a voice, gets a vote on that. They do have the power to amend the declarations and the bylaws. Amending declarations and bylaws. I think you guys have all, depending on the age of your neighborhood, you all have a different set of documents, and sometimes they're way out of date. Sometimes you're like, okay, we need to change that. We don't even have that anymore. That isn't applicable. There is in the declaration, and in the bylaws, you'll see a section in there on how to amend those. And you're not going to be able to amend those without the owners, because you need. In the state of Indiana, most of the time it's 67% to amend bylaws or declarations. At the most it can be is 75%. Even if your documents say, hey, 99% of the homeowners have to approve this, it's really the maximum is 75%. But that's a lot of owners. That's a lot of people you got to get in the same room or on the same building at the same time. So the owners really do have a lot of power in the association because they can pick the leaders. Let's go to the president of the association. You can read this along with this if you would like. The president does preside at all the meetings, sets the agenda, signs all the contracts. We are trying to get a little bit better at Kirkpatrick, where we want all the board presidents to sign contracts. We are able to do a lot of different smaller things with board minutes, but we do prefer to have a signed contract from all this. So it also helps. They also can select or nominate committee members, committee chairs. So just to tell you a couple different, you need a strong president. The president needs to be somebody in there who's not afraid to make the hard call. Listen, you're all volunteers. You're all out there and you're giving your time. To have a strong president, it's really going to kind of make things a little bit easier for you as far as getting things done. I had two different ideas. I had a board president at an association, very strong, got a lot of stuff done, had the agenda. We stuck to the meeting minutes. The meetings were, an hour long. We got a lot of things done. And, everybody on the board got a voice and they were able to talk. But, in the end, when there's voting and different things, he had a good handle on the association. And you could tell in the association and you could tell on the board. It makes it a lot easier for the board members if the board president isn't too wishy-washy. And that's not all of us can be board president. Not all of us can, do that. You need to know your strengths when you go into that. There is a neighborhood that we had a couple of years ago where they would have board meetings, but then homeowners were coming to the board meetings, and then they would let everybody in the crowd vote. And I tell you what, they didn't get anything done. So you just need to be able to, you can't make everybody happy. We go back a slide, it'll show where you were elected to the board by the owners. They elected you to make these decisions. They trusted you to make these decisions. And you want to make sure that you're living up to that. So that's where a strong board president can control that and keep the meeting moving, but also it's a CEO of a business. A lot of these neighborhoods are $300, $500, $1 million budgets. It's a pretty good sized small business. So you want somebody on there who can be the CEO, chief executive officer on that. The vice president, there's that old joke that he performs the duties of the presidents when the president's absent. They can't drive to the meeting in the same car because you want to make sure there's one always available or whatever. But basically, it's sharing the burden of the president and takes over usually it'll take over one of the harder committees, like the architectural committee or ad hoc committee. Say you're adding a pool to the neighborhood and you got a committee that's going to be spending a lot of time doing that. That's a great thing for a vice president to chip in on. And a lot of times it's training for, he'll be president next year in a couple of years when you have elections. But it also, there are a lot of neighborhoods where it is the liaison to some specific staff, and they will just help out, and they'll be the sometimes they're the liaison to the community association manager or different things like that. The secretary, very important job, the secretary. So the secretary, as you can read on this thing, and I know you guys can all read, so I'm not really going to read from it. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about it, but it's really the job of the secretary is to keep, just to kind of keep the record of everything that's going on. And also one of the main things is recording all the votes, so that when it's very important if you got a big project going on. And so I had a couple of years ago, I had a new elevator going into the neighborhood, and it took us 2 years to get it going. And we had to go back and look at, the original contract, look at what did we vote on this? So that really comes back to the secretary, making sure that those are recorded in your documents. Your community association manager is not the secretary. They're going to have their minutes, but they're looking for action items the whole time. They are not going to be, keeping minutes as what they're doing. There's a lot of different ways to do minutes. I do have for an association, for like a homeowners association, a lot of times it's really just what we talked about at the meeting, any decisions we made, and when the next meeting is coming up. So we need to have that. If there's any decisions made, it needs to be the votes need to be counted on that and published in the meeting minutes, because any owner can see the meeting minutes after they've been approved at the next meeting. I do have a couple of them that you can get a little bit too worried about the meeting minutes and really only just put down the votes. So that legally what you need to do is if you voted on something, you need to have that down there. The vote to open the meeting. We really like when people are using Robert's rules and can keep that going. But when you call for a vote, you're going to record the vote. But sometimes it's good to have just a little bit more than the vote in there. And if there's something else that was decided in the meeting, because really it's the record of what's going on at the board meeting. It's helpful to the CAM. It's helpful to the board as far as, hey, remember 2 years ago we talked about this. We can go back and look at things. So the secretary has a very important job in just keeping all the official records, correspondence, contacts, membership roster. KMC will help you with that, but that's really something that really helps the secretary. The treasurer. So the treasurer has got a very important job, but hopefully they're going to get a lot of help from KMC with that. You're sure that all financial transactions are documented. Review the financial statements. So every month you're getting financial statements from KMC, and they are emailed to you by our customer service rep. But by the time the customer service rep sees them, we've already had the accounting team. I'm actually in our office, so the accounting team's right there. So we've had the accounting team look at them, double check everything, balance everything. The CAM has looked at it to make sure everything looks good, and then it's sent to you. I hope that there aren't any treasurers out there who spend more than an hour a month looking at their financials. I think it's really something that hopefully we are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. One of the nice things is that the whole accounting department is right here at 5702 East Kirkpatrick Way. It's just basically we're in Castleton, north side of Indianapolis. You can come in and you can sit down with them if you've got questions. You can call them if you've got questions. They're real people. You know, they're going to look it up, and everybody has access to your financials. So there's good people. Carla Thompson's a good person to call. Jeff Price is a good one if you've got some reporting questions. You know, TJ's he's the wizard on accounts receivable. So there's just a lot of different people you can call here. You call them the main number, somebody's going to answer, and they'll tell you where to go. You know, it doesn't sound right. They will direct you who the best person is to talk to. So that really is very helpful. A member at large. Usually this is the first year board member. You know, they're just kind of just seeing. You know, there's a lot of you on this thing. You're just really trying to figure out what's going on with the neighborhood. Sometimes it takes a year or two really to get the gist of what it is to be a board member. Okay, what about this? And just the flow of you know, when this is happening, what is a big deal, what's not a big deal. Just really helps. You know, the first year, a lot of times a member at large, you don't want to go in as board president the first year you serve on the board. It's just not fair to you because you just, you know, a lot of times you're not know what's going on. It really helps if you've got 3-year terms, because a lot of times you'll spend that first year as an at-large member and kind of learning what's going on. The next year, maybe you step up and you're vice president or treasurer or even president, but you'll have known, you'll seen a cycle and been through an election, been through landscaping, a pool season, things like that. So member at large is really just kind of the first round for a board member. So your community association manager, and you can see down here where this is hopefully where all the pieces are going together. I like my job and Leah's job, who's answering questions on here, is we work with the CAMs every day. We work with your managers. We talk to them every day. We try and make sure that they are running your business like a business. I don't want them going and just hanging out and drinking beer at the board meeting and just talking. It's a business for them. This is their job. They want to be doing exactly what they're supposed to do. One of the things that really helps a community association manager is if a board, and sometimes boards are 3 people, sometimes they're 5, most of them are 5. There are some 7s. I got a couple that are 9 people. That's a big board. Is a single point of contact. A lot of times that can be the board president. So if you all, you know, a lot of times you're going back and forth with your, you know, emails on something. And you know, really the CAM is waiting for the board president or their single point of contact to give them direction. At the end of it, you know, you're going to talk about, hey, can we put a fence up here? Do we not put a fence up here? You know, decisions outside of meetings are really all going to come from either the board president or whoever that point of contact is. All of our contracts really talk about that. But the community association, another thing they're supposed to be doing is they're supposed to be getting you a management report. You know, the KMC management report is supposed to be coming to you 48 hours before your meeting, or just 2 days before your meeting, so that you have time to look through it. So you're not at the meeting, you're just not looking at the contract for the first time for concrete, so that you can take a look at it and maybe Google the company doing it and see what their Google reviews are, or you got Yelp reviews, things like that. So really, if you can get that, the community association manager works, number 1, for the board president. You know, that's who they answer to, for the board, and then the neighborhood. So really, they are there to help you manage that neighborhood. You're volunteers. They're not volunteers. They're getting paid to do this. We don't pay them a lot. They're not rich doing this, but we try and pay them a fair wage. But just they work for you. We try to balance their portfolios, is what we call it, so they don't have too much work. But if you think that balance is out of whack, that number to call is the one I gave you at the beginning. Call me, and we'll take a look at it and make sure, because maybe we missed something. But you should be getting good attention from your community association manager. If you're a small community, you don't have a lot going on, they might not be talking to you as much as if you're a large community with, you know, lots of activities and lots of things. So just kind of keeping an idea on that. So this kind of, you can see it all comes together as a puzzle piece, and really everybody working together and to a common goal. Board meetings, to talk a little bit. So there's basically 6 points to a successful board meeting. By now, I would imagine many of you have gone to the board meeting. even if you're new or old, been on before. Number one, the agenda. A lot of times it's very nice to have an agenda a week before the meeting so that you know what you're going to talk about. So you can, maybe prepare a little bit if you've got something you want on the agenda. Maybe that gives you a time to get it to the manager or the board president to get on the agenda so you guys can talk about it at the meeting. Financial reports and management report 48 hours before the meeting. So that's what we talked about before. So that gives the board members time to get those together. Are we always 48 hours? No, we're not. I still manage properties. We're all working managers here, Kirkpatrick. I'm probably the worst. I do the best I can. I get some of them 48 hours before. Some of them are 24 hours. But we try and make sure that you have plenty of time to read these things beforehand. If you can keep it going and have a meeting in a timely manner, you should be able to get an HOA meeting done in 60 minutes. A lot of times a COA meeting takes 90 minutes. So somewhere in that range, if you're there for 2 hours, usually there's a reason behind that. It's a business meeting. It's not, you're not there to chit chat. I jumped ahead to E, but you get the idea. Homeowner participation. This is very important. The state of Indiana allows homeowners to come to the board meetings. Allows homeowners to come to the board meeting. That does not mean that you are required to invite everybody to every board meeting. That is not what the law says. And it also does not say that they have the right to speak at every board meeting. A lot of times people do. I have a great neighborhood on the north side of Indianapolis. They from 6 to 6:30 every month before their meeting. They have an open session, and so they sit in there, and I'll sit in there and watch. But the board generally answers questions from the association. Sometimes it's on, hey, how come nobody picks up after the dog? And sometimes it's legitimate, it's big questions. But sometimes it's, hey, I see you got a new car. Just funky things like that. But really, but when the meeting starts, the homeowners they need to stay out of it. It's really just not something that they need to participate in. There is another neighborhood that has it at the end. That makes it a little trickier because you got to, sometimes you have to defend your decisions at the end of the meeting. Stick to the agenda. Really try and don't get off topic. And don't, although you got a great story to tell them, write it down and tell them afterwards after the meeting's done. And it is a business meeting. This is not when we're talking about the new, whatever new gossip is in the neighborhood. It's not the time to do that. Even though you're kind of neat to be with your neighbors and talk to them about that, you can do that after the meeting. That usually is a pretty good time. Let the cam go home. You guys can hang out, have a cold diet Sprite and sit around and talk, and then it's not a bad time to do that. One of the things, though, is important is that you do have a duty for confidentiality, and we'll get to that. And that is if you have to have an executive session, you need to call it an executive session. And what you'll do is at that point, you will, if it's on Zoom, they will release the owners from that at the time, and they'll have them move on. If it's at like a church, or if you have it at some sort of meeting house, your clubhouse, you can ask the owners to leave. A lot of time that is if you have a legal situation going on, that maybe you're suing somebody over they painted their house yellow with blue shutters and they weren't supposed to, and you're talking to your lawyers about that. That's not something that you do in front of the association. So that's something that the board members do in confidentiality. The same thing with delinquencies. And when you're talking about delinquencies, do not talk about Mrs. McGillicuddy in 3A hasn't paid her dues in 6 months. You can't do that in an open session. That's going to get you guys in trouble. So that's what the executive session. There are Robert's rules on what you can vote on, what you can't vote on in executive session, but most of the time it's discussion and making sure that everybody's on the same page on the legal issues and the serious stuff of the association. So just before we go too much further, this presentation, me talking and going through this, is going to be on YouTube. We are going to post that. We'll be sending you guys a link to that Monday or Tuesday of next week, so that you can, this is riveting. We all know that. This is just, but you'll be able to give this to your other board members if there's something you want to see. It'll also be posted on KMC Connect in the portal there, so that a board member couldn't make it tonight. They wanted to make it, hey, can you send me the notes for it? They can get on here and watch it and listen to it. So it'll all be there. And as well as the chat, we'll be able to do the questions that Leah's answering right now. We will be able to, those will be on there too. So I do want to talk a little bit about being a board member and the 4 essential duties of being on the board of directors. Is number one is duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience, and duty of confidentiality. When you say it like that, it doesn't really mean anything. So we're going to kind of go a little bit deeper and talk a little bit about that. And it's not anything that's really out of this world, hard to understand. But a duty of care requires a board member to make decisions, number one, in good faith, number two, in the best interest of the association, and number three, prudently. In good faith. It's a very important distinction that's going to come out in your term as a board member. It's not as, it says act with honesty, fairness, and in good intentions. That sounds like okay, we can do that. It's not as easy as it seems, because a lot of times you got on the board because there was something that you didn't feel was going right. You didn't feel this should have been done, that should have been done. You got to make sure that when you're on the board, you are doing for the best of the association, doing what's best for the association. A lot of times it might not be what you think is you don't want to spend your money on this, but it's probably what's best for the association. You got a pool and you need a new pool liner, and you think, man, if it was mine, I'd get a couple more years out of it. But it's not yours. The whole association shares it. It might be time. If you get a couple pool guys in, they all say that it's time to get a new pool cover, it's time to do that. The squeaky wheel, it is very difficult not to get that neighbor who, the neighbor who complains to you every time about, I need a stop sign at the corner of Springstone and 127th. That might not be something that it's in the best interest of the whole association, but maybe they live on that street and they want people to not go as fast through there. You got to do what's best for the association. And then it also talks about being prudent. So, you got to ask a lot of questions, and that's really what the CAM is there for. You got to ask a lot of questions, and I'm always okay with a CAM saying, you know what, I don't know this, and I'll get back to you. To me, that's an answer, but they got to get back to you. If they don't get back to you, then you call that number again. But, it's something where these guys are managers. They are not, they're not experts. A lot of them come from different backgrounds and different things, but they're going to have to go ask some different people, some different things, but follow the governing documents, attend the board meetings. If you're not going to board meetings and you don't like the way things are going, you can't really, you can't really complain about the board if you're on it. They don't do anything I want. Well, you didn't go to the last couple meetings, and maybe that's why you missed it. So try and go to the board meetings, and also take the time to look at the board packet. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and that'll keep you actually. And what you're doing right now is really helping out, because you're basically trying to learn a little bit more about your craft, because you're on this board, you're a volunteer, you're giving your time tonight. So follow the governing documents. That's the biggest one on that. Duty of loyalty. A lot of this deals with conflict of interest, and that's a big topic, and then that can kind of come in on the board meeting. Maybe you've got a board member who owns a landscape company. And, he's like, okay, I can do this for, I'll do it for free, or I can do this for, maybe that's not the best idea for maybe it's a conflict of interest at that point. But if he excuses himself from the vote, if he puts a bid in, a sealed bid in with everybody else, and he actually gets the job legitimately, then you are keeping that out there in front of things. And so that, I believe, is not a conflict of interest. Another thing, and let's just go ahead and say it, KMC Group is a sister company or as a division of Kirkpatrick Management. They do a lot of different work in a lot of different neighborhoods, but we put the name right there on the front, so you guys know that it is us. We're going to tell you what we're doing, and most of the time, anything we're going to do, we're going to give you a price. So we feel that by being out in front of it, what they're, who it is. If we made it, we hid it under a different name, that would be a conflict of interest. Put it out there right in the biggest name. Another one that I feel that comes up, there is one of the neighborhoods I've got has they are able to, they have their money with with one of the board members, is with the bank that manages the money. He actually excuses himself from that vote every year. It's actually is brought up, and it's disclosed at every annual meeting. Hey, our board member is a vice president at this bank that our money is at. And so just so people know, just make sure that everything's out there. We talk about like transparency a lot. Sometimes that word is overused, but really just trying to make sure that everybody, nobody's going to get rich being on a board. You're trying to make sure your neighborhood looks the best, and that's really what you're trying to do. The duty of obedience, really the idea with this is following the rules and regulations and the declarations or bylaws. If your declaration says that you can't enter into a contract outside of the budget that is over $5,000, that means you can't enter into a contract outside of a budgeted item for $5,000 during a regular year. You gotta follow along with that, because if that comes out and you disregard the governing documents, and you end up getting sued on that, might be something that directors and officers insurance is not going to cover for you. So stay in there, stay within your governing documents, obey the law, the bylaws. Sometimes they might be crazy. There are some of them. So we've got these days, some neighborhoods have they have a lot of money in their reserve account. And they think, I could make a lot more money if we put this in, if we put this with a broker, if we did, different things with it. A lot of times your governing documents will say that money has to be in an FDIC insured bank. So watch that. Make sure, if you've got questions, there are professionals that can help you. We all can get you attorneys. The CAM will be able to talk to somebody in here, but kind of stay within the rules and regulations. The duty of confidentiality, that one's kind of a load to read, but I'll kind of just tell you a little bit about it. But same thing we talked about earlier, collections. You have an obligation to keep that quiet. If your neighbor is 2 doors down, is up for collections, and he's not paying his dues, but you saw him just drive in a new Corvette, you can't tell the whole neighborhood, listen, he can't even pay his dues, but he's got a brand new Corvette. Not really something you can do. You got to keep the confidentiality. It's also big on if you guys are voting on, sometimes you have a budget meeting, and between the budget meeting and the board meeting, there's like 3 weeks where during the budget meeting, you guys thought, hey, we're going to raise dues by 3%. Well, if you start spreading that around the neighborhood, by the time you go to the board meeting, there might be, there might be pitchforks. So you got to kind of keep things, to yourself. And when you're working on things, because maybe you had another discussion between them that maybe this year we don't need to raise the dues. So confidentiality is a big thing. So it's really, I think you guys get that, but it's really something that you have to keep your eye on. I'm going to talk a little bit about liability. And as a board member, the biggest thing at the bottom here is Indiana Non-for-Profit Corporations Act provides indemnity protections for directors acting in good faith. So we'll talk a little bit about it up above, but basically, if you made a decision and you did your research on it, you did it in good faith, you weren't trying to benefit by something, the Indiana Not-for-Profit Corporations Act is going to allow you from being prevent you from being sued or have any financial problems because of that. Because if you did the best you could, you used an engineer study, you had a CPA look at these different things, and it still went wrong. You know what? You used your good faith. You did the best, your due diligence to get everything done. You can minimize your risks by, it says down here, these are good, and it's probably just good to read these. Reading and knowing your documents, keeping good records, making decisions with a view toward the best interest for the whole neighborhood, diligently collecting assessments and enforcing covenants. This is one that can get away from you, and really, it's just you want to make sure that you do both of these things evenly. So if Mrs. Johnson on Salem Court has been getting letters because she has her trash cans out, number one, you better not have your trash cans out. Number two, everybody in the neighborhood who has their trash cans out should be getting letters. You got to be fair. You got to kind of keep things level on that. So when you're enforcing those things, make sure that you are doing them evenly. Same thing with collecting assessments. You just got to make sure that you're getting the assessments. You need those assessments that's our job to collect those. You don't need to go around door to door. I would rather you didn't do that. Let us do that. You pay us to do that. Let us take care of that. Don't make decisions based on emotions. It's a corporation, not a club, and you get that. I mean, we've talked about that a little bit. One of the things that communicate effectively, it's a big job of the secretary. They really need to make sure that is, they're communicating, they're getting all this out, whether it's a website, whether you're posting on KMC Connect, just make sure it's out there, make sure everybody's getting what they need. We are also big, Kirkpatrick, we are the largest management company in Central Indiana. We have a lot of attorneys, CPAs, engineers, insurance providers, professionals that we work with. We do not get any money from the attorneys, the CPAs, the engineers, the landscape people. Our job is to provide you with the experts, the people that we're going to make your job a little bit easier. We are, although we have an accounting department here, we're going to have a CPA is going to do your tax returns every year. It's $250, I think, 200, maybe it's $265 this year. I'm not sure, to get those done. You need a professional for that. If you have an audit, it's still not something these guys here are going to do. Our accounting people here are going to do. I did have a paving job a couple years ago at a neighborhood called Spruce Knoll. I thought, I came from the construction industry. I thought I could do this. I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and get 3 bids for paving this street. And I got 3 bids back, and they couldn't have been any different. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. It was, they had $120,000 budgeted, and I had one come in at 200. I had one come in at 80. I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. So I was able to, what we were able to do is talk to the board. We got an engineer, came in, wrote up some specs, got all the bids, made sure they were all the same. So we hired an outside project manager to manage the project. We probably paid them $4,000. I know we paid them $4,000, and they saved the association $20 because they were able to get it done right. It didn't need a whole tear out. It's just different things. We got a paving project going right now in Broad Ripple, and we've got an engineer who's been out a couple times looking at it, and he's not letting us. He says, you don't really need to tear everything off and put all new on there. You can really just, if with a good patch job and some seal coating, your driveways are going to be fine. We've got to go with the engineers and the professionals on that, especially with attorneys. Every neighborhood here has an attorney. I mean, there's gonna be one that we can give you the name, but we work with 3 locally that are very good. They specialize in HOA law. And so that we're going to make sure that if you want a professional opinion, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. And we really want these HOA lawyers to be able to do it and be able to give you that information. So talk a little bit with your CAM about things if you're curious on it, or if you think, hey, should we get a project manager? Should we get an engineer involved in this? They'll be happy to do that. Kind of wrapping up here a little bit. One of the things I do want to talk about is new this year. Is our customer care program. We have a woman by the name of Kelly Soto. What she is doing for us is she is going to be reaching out to the board presidents of every association this year and just kind of seeing how things are going. If you're new to if you're new to Kirkpatrick within the last year, you probably already heard from her. If not, we're looking for you. But and what we want to do is we want to touch base with you. We want to see how things are going. Hey, is this working well? Are you getting the reports that you want? Can we help out? Can we get somebody in to help you read the financials? We like to try, and what she's going to do is be a liaison between the board and the manager and make sure that things are going well. Problems are a lot easier to solve when they're small. So she's going to try and be proactive, get to talk to the board president, say, hey, what can I help with? Is there anything I can do for you? Hey, you know what? Jeff's a great manager, does a great job, but he just has a trouble. He just doesn't know diddly squat about pools. I really would love somebody to maybe help him out a little bit on pools. Maybe we got to send him to a pool class, something like that. But that's before we want to hit these things when they're small. We like the people that we've got. We've got good managers, but sometimes it's not a fit for each neighborhood. Sometimes you've got a guy who, right now I'm actually switching out of a neighborhood because my management style doesn't really fit the board that they have right now. They got a board that really wants to do everything on their own. They want to do the due diligence and they want to look it all up themselves. And so we're in the middle of trying to find a good manager for them, somebody that's going to fit their style now. We've got lots of managers. We got 35 of them out there. We can find somebody that's going to work well with your association. We do like to manage geographically. We have Greenwood people managing Greenwood. We have Avon and Plainfield. We have West Side managers. We have East Side managers, North Side managers, downtown managers. But we'll find somebody that's going to do a good job. So Kelly Soto, her information's on there. She's going to be getting a hold of you, but you can also reach out to her or to me if you've got questions, and we'll try and answer them before they get too big. So the timing's just about right. I think we talked about 45 minutes. So what we're going to do is Leah, you've been answering a lot of questions in the chat. Some here and there. Good. So what we're going to do is Samantha is going to open up so you guys can actually unmute yourselves if you want. We'll start with Leah. Leah, is there anything that you think was very popular in the chat you think you want to address
Okay.
Right now? Go ahead.
Yeah. So a couple things. Dan, can you give out your cell phone number one more time?
I can give out Leah's cell phone number. No, yeah, my cell phone number is 317-847-0016.
0016. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
really?
A reminder to everyone, the recording will be available on KMC Connect sometime next week under the ABC seminar. So you can, the PDF or PowerPoint will also be available as well, because those were some of the questions. And I just wanted to make a note too. You were talking about minutes and that the CAMs do not take minutes, and that is because it is a conflict of interest if we are taking minutes. So that's why we always encourage a board member to take minutes. And a question that came up, Dan, I'm going to refer to you. Indiana code does state that the board members have to open up the meeting, except when you're talking about legal action or delinquencies, but committees, is that the same ruling? I don't see it on that Indiana code, but your thoughts?
The way I understand it is committees is not the same thing. You know, it might be a good idea to have the committees open, but really probably not much you're trying to hide in the word of transparency. But no, it doesn't really need to be an open item for everybody. This Indiana law is silent on that, I believe, so you guys can make your own judgment. But a lot of times on those committees, sometimes people will show up for the landscape committee the first time just to see what's going on, what flowers are going in this year. But, you know, it's still a lot of the committees, and just to speak real quick about committees, it's really good to have a board member on each one of these committees as the liaison to the board on that, so that sometimes you can get a landscape committee and they think that they can choose the vendor, they can choose the, you know, how many mows are going to be this year and all these different things. That's really the board's decision. Committee does not make those kind of calls, but having a board member on there will be a good liaison to the board. But no, those, I don't believe those need to be open.
Okay, that is all I had.
So yeah, the phone number, my cell phone number, real quick, my cell phone number, if you get into trouble and you can't get a hold of your manager and you're not getting the answers you want, get a hold of me. That's what you're supposed to do. Try not to do it maybe after 10 o'clock at night unless there's an emergency. But other than that, find me. I'd be happy to. Go ahead. I think I don't have my glasses on. So you have your hand raised. You can ask a question.
Yeah, Dan, this is Chris Getz. You had indicated early on in the program here that the bylaws needed to be approved by the owners. In our articles of incorporation, it's only the board that needs to approve any changes to the bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah, the CCRs, yeah, it's a whole nother story. The owners need to be involved, but I just want to make sure that was not a Indiana state thing that says, hey, no, you need to have the owners approve the bylaws.
That's a good question, because I've not seen that before. And so if that's the case and then it's clearly in there, you might get a second opinion. It might be worth it just to run that by an attorney. You know, sometimes it's $200 to get an attorney to ask to answer those things. But you know, really, I've never seen that before. But if that's what it says, that's what it says. That's what you got to go by. Governing documents rule.
Right. Right. Thank you, Dan. All right. Thanks.
Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Dan, thank you. There was a question in the chat that got skipped, and I just want to make sure that it gets circled back to. On the slide about the responsibilities of the secretary, there was a bullet about a clarification of Indiana state law, and there was no clarification of that. I'm not sure what the point of that bullet was, but someone asked in the chat. Just want to make sure it got addressed.
Okay. Andrew, what was the question?
The question is early in the chat when Dan was on the duties of the board members on the secretary slide. And it's just a bullet that says clarification of Indiana state law. And
okay,
it just wasn't clear what that was.
So a lot of times on that thing is really that, I guess where I was going for on that one is the state law does require that you do keep minutes at these meetings. And I guess I should have been better at that. So thank you, Andrew. Andrew does Zoom and PowerPoints all day long, and he's better at this, much better at this than me. I'm just newly have Andrew on one of my boards, but the minutes are very important, as we found out at the harbors, because you know, a lot of decisions are made and those board members move on, and we got to figure out how those are going. But the minutes are they're just, you know, the history of the association, and the state of Indiana make sure that you keep the record of votes, and make sure that you have, you know, big decisions in those minutes so that you can refer back to that in the associate. It's not hidden from the owners.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. That's very helpful. And I know that at our association, there's a tool that's being used to kind of capture those. I'm not sure if that was, that's very helpful.
It is. The board treasurer, if anybody, any secretaries out there want me to send you there's an Excel spreadsheet that they use down there that is just incredibly easy. It's just, it records the votes, and you just kind of put everybody's names in there, and it's every secretary's dream. So yeah, get a hold of me if you want some ideas. This guy named Jason Fay, he put it together for them, and it's really very, very easy. We've shared it with the CAMs around here. He does not get any royalties for that, by the way.
He should. It's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Any other question? Anybody? Or Samantha, how about anything in the chat that we need to talk about a little bit more?
I believe everything in the chat has been covered.
Okay.
I'll just read one real quick because I'm trying to answer something else. When votes are done by email, should those be added to the minutes at the next meeting?
Okay, so that is a good question. So the only way that Kirkpatrick, and I believe it is state law, and Leah, you're gonna have to back me on this one, but we do not allow for votes or decisions to be made via email unless it is unanimous. Right. And there are some associations which specifically say in their bylaws that they are not you can't make decisions outside of a board meeting. Which is it's just a little bit tricky to do that. So if you've got somebody who's in, a board member who's in Guam for 3 weeks, if you need an emergency done, the board president can get emergency services done. But if you're voting on something via email, you're really going to need to call a meeting and get that back, unless you can get 100% approval via email. Is this state law?
I have a
state
question.
Law, Leah?
Yeah, it is state law.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Dan, this is Becky Richter. And
Hey, Becky.
Hi. Before COVID, I attended, it was a CAI educational session. And a question came up from an association where one of the board members was abstaining from votes. And because he wanted that to be for the recorded, on the record that he was abstaining from a particular vote. And he did it routinely. But the question was, should the association be recording that? And the answer, as I recall at that time, was it didn't matter. So can you expand on what you mean by recording these votes at board meetings? Are you recording how the president and the vice president voted? Are you recording it's unanimous, it was a 3-2 vote?
So that's a good question, and I've seen it all different kinds of ways. What Andrew and I were talking about is they have theirs are very open as far as you can see who votes what. A lot of times, I'm a big one in favor of the vote passed 4-0 with one abstaining, something like that, or 3-2. It did not pass for different reasons. So I don't really like putting the names in there as much. But it is something that you do. There are some people who just don't like to vote on things, or I've been on the board before with one guy who just voted no to everything, and because he just didn't believe in the power of the board. But it kind of depends on the board themselves. I would rather we didn't use names as much and have it recorded as Andrew voted this, Jason voted this, but sometimes people want to do that. So it's really kind of a board thing. I think it should be, what does need to be recorded is the count of the vote, whether it's 4-0 unanimous or 3-2, 1 abstaining, something like that.
Okay, so the count is important and should be
Yes.
captured in the minutes versus just saying motion made, seconded, and carried.
If it's, not if it's, opening the meeting, the motion to open the meeting, but if it's a decision on hiring a landscaper, if it's a decision on taking somebody to, we're gonna take somebody to court, or new roofs. If you're gonna get new roofs, you want it recorded in there as far as more you want the vote in there. Yeah.
Okay, and you should open the meeting, not with just the president calling it to order, but having a motion to open the meeting.
So Robert's rules does have you doing that. Can I have a motion to open the meeting, or I want to open the meeting? So I believe so next week we're trying to brush up on our Robert's rules, and so we have a parliamentarian coming in. He's going to teach all the CAMs better Robert's rules etiquette, and so it just makes the meeting a lot easier.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem.
Dan, 2 questions. Chuck Poland. Number 1, do we need a parliamentarian, or will our representative from Kirkpatrick serve that as he attends board meetings?
No, it's the parliamentarian is just going to come in and teach us how to make sure we're doing it right. So you don't Robert's rules is going to make your life a lot easier. It's kind of a shortened version a lot of times of Robert's rules, but you want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. You want to make sure a motion is seconded. Sometimes a motion, you can bring something up and it doesn't even get a second, so you're not voting on it. So things like that. But I don't think you need a parliamentarian. Maybe that's not a bad idea for a seminar down the road.
And can your representative to our board serve as the parliamentarian?
No, because we're still vendors, really. We're just going to try and help lead it along, and say, hey, but we would rather that the board president was the one who was, giving the instructions on that.
My second question is, how much leeway does the board have in promulgating rules and regulations that are not covered in the covenants?
So if there are rules, and if you need to make something, so rules and regulations, as long as they are distributed to every homeowner via email, US mail, wherever you need to do it, those can be, as long as it's not against one of your covenants or restrictions, those are going to be legally binding. So it is something where you can, it doesn't specifically say something in your documents, but you are getting more, your rules and regulations are spelling it out a little bit better. You can't go against your declarations, but the rules and regulations can get more strict, that can really clamp down on something.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
And real quick, the minutes have to be held for how many years? I was mixed up between 3 or 7.
I think the minutes are 7 also, along with the financials. There's some different things on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Stephanie on here? Stephanie knows that stuff. I can't remember the exact. We'll make sure that that's in the notes down at the bottom, but I believe it's 7.
Okay. And then the Excel spreadsheet, a lot of people have asked for that, so I just stated that we would send it out to everyone that attended.
You made Jason's day. Yeah, I will do that. That's going to be great.
Okay. Is there anyone else that has a question before I go on? Okay. Another question that keeps coming up is, how do you suggest you get how the boards can get other homeowners involved? I know that is a thing that comes up quite a bit, that homeowners do not want to get
we're all
involved.
doing best we can, period.
But
so what we do a lot of times is getting board members involved. A lot of times that is at by starting at the committee level. Maybe they're on the social committee, maybe they're helping out, they're out there setting up the community party, different things like that. So usually they learn a little bit about it. And a lot of times as long as your meetings aren't, a lot of times in HOA, you meet 4 times a year. In condos, they meet a lot more, but at HOA, you meet 4 times a year sometimes. So it's not that huge of a commitment. And if you guys are well organized and we just need people to help us make the right decisions. You got to sell it to them. But a lot of good training ground is the committees, helping out on the landscape committee, helping out on an ad hoc committee, Christmas decorations, Santa Claus Club, things like that. Leah, did you have any other questions that you want to talk about?
I do not at this time.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. At least it's cold out and there's no good TV on, so I appreciate you guys giving us an hour. We enjoy doing this. We have another one in a couple months. We'll send that out to you. We have 5 of them this year, and we make sure we believe in educating all of our community association managers, and hopefully this helps to educate the board members, and so we can keep everybody on the same page. Appreciate your time, and just tell us if we can do anything. Appreciate everything.
All right.
Have a great night. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
Samantha, I'm going to turn that over to you.